Well, in other news now, Bollywood actor Shah Rukh Khan, who went to the US to visit Yale University where he was being honored, was apparently detained for over 2 hours at a New York airport once again. This is apparently the 4th time he's been detained. Now, according to reports, while everyone else was cleared by immigration, Khan was made to wait, and Yale University officials had to intervene. The dean actually had to call the Homeland Security to get Khan released. Khan, who has been named a Chubb Fellow, was accompanied by Neeta Ambani, and they were understood to have arrived in a private plane at the New York's White Plain Airport. While Neeta Ambani was and the other people were allowed to pass, Shah Rukh was detained. Ambani's daughter is a student of Yale University. Later, when he finally did make it to the university, he joked about it.
It was a long flight. Thank you, Neeta, for getting me here. Thank you, Isha, for having me over here. And we were detained at the airport, as always, for an hour and a half, which was nice. Yeah, it always happens. It's nice. You know, whenever I start feeling too arrogant about myself, I always take a trip to America. Yeah, the immigration guys kick the star out of stardom. And, but I have my small victories. You know, they always ask me how tall I am, and I always lie and get away. 5 feet 10 inches. Next time I'm going to be more adventurous. What color are you? I'm going to say white.
Well, Sarah Jacob was there in Yale when he was honored by the university. Sarah, she joins us on the phone line. Sarah, do tell us what happened. It seems once again Shah Rukh Khan was harassed at the airport.
That's right, Gargi. You know, what you heard him say right now is Shah Rukh Khan speaking to students. He was honored today by becoming a Chubb Fellow. He took to the stage and he began speaking in what one has come to associate with Shah Rukh Khan, in a very self-deprecating and in a funny manner, speaking to students. And he talked about an incident that took place at the airport, and a lot of people in the audience just laughed, as you can hear in that bite. A lot of people weren't sure if he was serious or joking, but we have now confirmed this because we have spoken with members of his team and with organizers at Yale who awarded Shah Rukh, or decided to give him this honor, and actually organized this trip for him to come to the U.S. This time he was also flying in on a private plane, and he was flying with a larger entourage. This included Mrs. Ambani, Mrs. Neeta Ambani, and he was flying into Yale to address the students at this very prestigious event. So what happened was he flew into the White Plains Airport in Westchester in New York, and he says the plane landed at 12:30. He was supposed to have a press conference at 2 o'clock, but he was then detained for about 2 hours. He was detained till 2:30. He never made the press conference. He did not even land up for the 4 o'clock at the time when the lecture was about to start. And he only managed to make it to Yale by around 6 o'clock. Now, Shah Rukh Khan's team members, and we've spoken with the head of Red Chillies USA, who was by his side throughout this entire trip, and she tells us that Shah Rukh knew, in a way, and he knew and he was expecting to be stopped. Shah Rukh Khan, from what we're told from sources who've been traveling with him, was expecting to be stopped, and he says that he's on some sort of a list or the other. He was stopped. Everybody else on the team was allowed to go through, and he was just not allowed. Eventually, his team members say that the authorities at Yale were so embarrassed, that's the word they used, because Shah Rukh Khan was coming as a guest to Yale University, and the president of Yale University, Mr. Richard Levine, made a call to Homeland Security, who they said and immediately said this is ridiculous. Again, this is a word used by people traveling with Shah Rukh Khan. And they spoke to immigration authorities, who immediately realized that they had made some sort of a mistake. But even then, because of bureaucracy involved, it took him another half an hour. Shah Rukh Khan then came immediately straight to Yale University. He had spoke with the press for a few minutes and then took to the stage. And then he held this audience enthralled for about an hour and a half. You would have no way of knowing that Shah Rukh Khan had just had such an experience with the authorities at the airport. Again, Shah Rukh Khan says this is the 3rd time this has happened to him, his experience with the United States. But there would have been no way of knowing, because he spoke, really interacted very well with the students, and he even wound up his interaction with the students by dancing on stage and getting the dean of admissions, who was on stage with him, to actually dance. Nobody could have known that Shah Rukh Khan had a care in the world or was upset in any way by his experience with the U.S. authorities. But this is not the first time that this has happened, Gargi. This is the 3rd time this has happened to Shah Rukh Khan. And I also would just like to point out that just 2 days ago, the New York Times carried a piece that talked about how U.S. visa rules deprive actors and making it so much more difficult for actors and creative artists to travel to the United States. They did a whole story about this, and the lead in their story was an artist, a flamenco dancer, and as of now, we've seen one of the biggest superstars in the world. They hailed it that the 3 billion people the world over, that 1 in every 2 recognize Shah Rukh Khan by his picture or by his face, but clearly not authorities at immigration, not authorities at U.S. Homeland Security, because again, for the third time, despite what happened the last time, Shah Rukh Khan has been stopped again while he was traveling on a personal flight. Any private jet or private liner, they still have to go through Homeland Security. But because of what happened last time, one would expect that perhaps Homeland Security will be aware of this mistake that has taken place in the past. But Shah Rukh Khan says he was expecting this to happen again, and as it turned out, his gut was right.
Right, and in fact, the way he joked about it, Sarah, at Yale, saying nothing like immigration authorities to take the star out of stardom. But also, some reports say that the people at the airport actually did recognize him, and that's why he thinks he's on some sort of a list. And then finally, the dean of Yale having to intervene in the entire matter.
That's right, Darlie. This is what we heard. Well, actually, when he says there's some sort of a list, Homeland Security or the immigration authorities have a sort of a list, and I'm assuming there's certain names and there's certain common names. Unfortunately, because of the way the world is, the new world order, post 9/11, a lot of this happens to be Muslim names or common Muslim names like Khan. And again, Shah Rukh Khan has talked about this personally in his own creative work. The film My Name is Khan talks about this issue. Again, the New York Times article that came out just 2 days ago talks about how, according to the Homeland Security records themselves, requests for performers or foreign performers' visas have declined to the United States by 25% since 2006 to 2010. These are the statistics at the Homeland Security Department, because artists the world over have just said it is not worth it to travel to the United States because it's just too expensive. It's just too much of a hassle for artists to get visas in a post-9/11 world to the United States. A lot of times, these visas will only be granted if you can show your tickets beforehand, if you can show where you're going to perform or why you've been invited. And then after you go through all of that, you don't get a visa, and there's a lot of money that's wasted. This article talks about this. And again, we see here today, one of the biggest names, I say this again, this is not a takeaway from the lead, the case study in the New York Times article, who's a flamenco dancer, but this is Shah Rukh Khan. Simply the fact that he's one of the biggest names in India because of our population and because he is so popular, not just in India, whether it's Poland, whether it's Russia, whether it's even the United States. He is one of the most recognizable faces in the world of movies, in the industry today. And despite that, he seems to again have a problem with the authorities. When he says, Gargi, that he was recognized, what he means is that they knew he was an actor.
Right.
That they knew he was an actor, but still, despite that, they stopped that. Now, I can again quote Homeland Security officials when asked by the New York Times in their piece that talks about actors increasingly having problems. They say these are things that they just have to do in order to keep America secure. They have to follow the procedures. But again, this is Shah Rukh Khan. This is the third time both Shah Rukh Khan is saying that this has happened to him in America.
Right.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.